Hey, welcome to Wagons West. It is Thursday, June the 6th, and you've probably guessed it. My Facebook page is giving us issues, so I'm just going to remove it right now from Facebook. But you can go to the personal profile there. Also, we're on LinkedIn, X, Rumble, and YouTube. All right, so here we go. Save changes. Okay, so here we go. All right. So tonight is we're talking about self-defense, a self-defense crash course. I thought it'd be kind of pertinent to talk about this topic, seeing as how we have a whole lot of influx of violence and admittedly a lot more in the US south of our border than we do here in Canada, but also here in Canada, Toronto, where I come from, originally is getting quite dangerous. Canada is not the country that it once was. Here in Alberta, Edmonton and Calgary are also starting to see increases in violent crime. And of course, we have rural crime, which again is more property crime, but it does carry with it a violent element. And it's always good to know how to protect yourself. And what could you possibly glean from an online live stream in terms of self-defense? Well, yeah, it's true. Nothing's ever going to replace physically being there and physically training and drilling things physically with an experienced instructor that knows what they are doing, what they're talking about. But the goal here is not to make you a killing machine. The goal tonight is to get you thinking appropriately about the subject of interpersonal violence and criminal violence more than anything. And and then maybe, hopefully, at least you will follow up by finding somewhere local to you where you can physically train to prepare for this. At any rate, I digress. Before we carry on too much, I just want to bring up a couple of things. Whoop, that's the wrong button. Here we go. Okay, here we go. So this image here, I shot after we came back to Valley View, which is the town I live in, for those that don't know, after our evacuation last summer in 2023 because of the wildfire that was about 5 miles up the road from us. So we got evacuated because of the smoke. When we got allowed back into town, I came back and the sky was orange. It was crazy. And so I grabbed my camera and ran around town and got some what I thought would be kind of apocalyptic photos. Anyways, I posted this one recently on X, and the caption on the right up there says, "What does this photograph make you feel? Leave your answer in the comments below. The first 100 comments posted will be entered into a draw to win a free signed print of this photo." I don't know if you can see right now. There are 7 comments, so there's room for 93 more comments. If you would like to get a free copy of this photo physically mailed to you, signed on the back, please do find this on my X profile at tjken. If you have to search for it, you can go to my media tab and look for this photo. It was posted on May 30th, so that is an option for you. Okay, so I figured tonight, first, I'd kind of earn some credibility with the audience because all you guys know me as a photographer from Alberta. But not too long ago, I do come, as I mentioned, from the East in Toronto. Please don't hold that against me. And it does seem like a distant memory. I feel very Albertan, but nonetheless, my life experience is from Toronto. And you know me as a photographer, and I actually was a hobbyist photographer up until I moved to Alberta, when I jumped in head first. And what I did for a job was executive protection, private security for a long time. For about 20 years, I was doing security, both as a bouncer. I finished off my years in executive security and close protection, but for a long time was a bouncer and going hands-on with violence. And then, of course, I also coupled that on the side with a passion of mine, which was combat sports. So teaching combatives, Muay Thai, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, boxing, stuff like that. And I just really, really loved that. Had a passion for martial arts my entire life, thanks to my dad. My dad more was a traditional martial artist. He liked his Shaolin Kung Fu and, didn't have a lot of fight experience except for like 1 or 2 fights in high school. But that was kind of what got me into it when I grew up. And of course, you have your Hollywood movies there, The Karate Kid, blood sport were kind of the big ones, right? And so I always loved martial arts. I was always a smaller kid too. Like I remember going from Toronto to Waterdown, where I ended up going to elementary school, and I was 9 years old and I was 45 pounds. I remember at that age, that's how big I was. And so I didn't even crack 100 pounds until high school. So I was always really small, always had fantasies of being bigger, stronger, and martial arts kind of gave me an outlet for that. And they say that size doesn't matter, and it does matter, right? Size isn't everything, but it is something, yeah, and it does count for something. But nonetheless, you can learn some skills to protect yourself regardless of who that attacker or opponent is. The stuff that I'm going to be going over tonight is more of a theory than physical skills, although you'll see some video and you'll see some photos of physical skills being deployed. You'll see some recommended reading, but we're not here trying to turn you into some fighter. I'm not teaching you to go toe-to-toe. I'm just trying to give you enough tools and skills to create what we call a 1 second window of opportunity, i.e., you're creating, whoever's attacking you, you're creating a reactionary gap. So you introduce some stimulus, let's just pretend you punch them in the throat. They react to that reactionary gap. The time it takes for them to recover from what you just did either buys you an opportunity to get out of there, okay, or it buys you an opportunity to cause another injury until you, and just to keep stacking them like that until you can get out of there. So that's the general concept. We're going to go through it today. Now, if you guys have any questions during the course of this, please do enter it in the comments. One more point of order here. I did start a new Substack. So I will be writing once a week. Articles are going to come out on Mondays there. There is a free tier, so you can enjoy some of the articles there for free at tjkennedyphoto.substack.com. But there are paid tiers as well where you can get access to all the articles and part of the community and such like that. It's $5 a month. If you appreciate what I do and if you appreciate the content of that Substack or any of my other content, such as the podcast here, you can also go to that Substack and join up. It's $50 a year, $5 a month, or free. Free will get you one post a month. They come out weekly. And that is about all I have to say about that. Okay, so without further ado, I'm going to share my screen here. And like I said, I want to kind of build my credibility here. Where are we? Okay, let me open you. I'm going to build my credibility here because, again, you know me as a photographer, not as a combatives instructor, but I spent probably about 20 years doing that. And before I came to Alberta, to work in photography. So here we are. Okay, let's just take you through this. Just going to go through some photos here. It's a little trip down memory lane. This was when I was, I think I was 8 years old or 9 years old here, maybe. You can see myself. Again, I mentioned my dad was into Shaolin Kung Fu and stuff. I think this was one of his gis, one of his karate gis. These pictures, by the way, are not in any chronological order, so forgive me for that. But I just grabbed a bunch out of the archive here to show you. This, I believe, was in 2015 or maybe 2016 in Toronto. And this is a group of gentlemen from the United States. I believe they came from Pennsylvania. And you can see on their shirts, it says VMAT, which is Veterans Martial Arts Training. So it was a nonprofit training entity for veterans to get them into some physical activity and camaraderie and brotherhood there. And they took a road trip up here to Toronto to train with me, so that was pretty cool. This photo again is from 2010, I believe, or 2011. There's a local martial arts club in Toronto called the Fighting Arts Collective, and they would often hold something called the Throwdown, where you would come, kind of like Dog Brothers style stuff, where you'd come and you can challenge anybody to any sort of fight. You'd agree on the rules. We're going to go full contact. We're going to go light contact. We're going to use sticks. We're not going to use sticks. We're going to do just boxing. We're going to do grappling, whatever it is. It's just between you and your opponent. And then they'd officiate that with some referee to make sure you all stuck to the rules you agreed to. So that was always fun. A great little testing ground. This is bringing back memories. This is doing some training in my little basement dungeon. I lived in it was probably like 400, 500 square foot basement apartment in Toronto at Dufferin at Eglinton, and so I'd bring some private clients there and stuff to train. So here we were doing some weapons training, impact weapons, same place, same concept, doing some training there in that basement. Here, some photos from Seneca College. That gentleman over on the right in the camo hat there, that's Mike Dika. He was one of my instructors, one of the people I certified to teach the system as well. And again, that was one of the things we did. I went to a lot of schools to go teach. I'll show you from another folder from a private high school that I taught at for about 17, 18 years in a row, which was pretty awesome. So again, these are all the Seneca College photos. My buddy Luke Holloway, met him in 2010. He's a solid dude. You'll find him on YouTube. He runs the Raw Combat Martial Arts Empire there. He's out of Australia, but he has cells all over the world, in Canada and the US, all throughout Europe, Asia, Japan, Australia, Indonesia. He gets around. He gets everywhere. We call him the Vanilla Gorilla. He's about 250, 255, and about 6'4", and just is an absolute joy. We have a real good friendship. So Luke's pretty good. This is Frank Arias, Sistema instructor. And this is at Extreme Couture in Etobicoke in Toronto. I taught my self-defense classes there from 2010 to 2010, I believe, to maybe 2013 or 14. And this is actually at one of those seminars, and Frank happened to show up for one of those. I don't know if you recognize this guy's face. This is Evangelist Silva. The very few times I ever get starstruck, this was one of those times. He's my favorite MMA fighter of all time, and he happened to come. I was working. This is actually on the job. I'm working security here at a bar, and he came in. There was a UFC in town, and he came in, and they were just partying and stuff like that. So it was really nice to get a photo with him. There's Luke again. There's Frank again, and Toronto stuntman Bart Badziak. So he's a union stunt guy there in Toronto as well. And this is Oliver Gaduce, one of my trainers in Filipino martial arts. He has his own brand of Filipino stick and knife fighting, so I was training with him there. You might not recognize this guy. This is Rory Miller. He wrote the books Meditations on Violence, Facing Violence, and he has been an absolute goldmine of information when it comes to asymmetrical criminal violence, not more mixed martial arts or martial arts per se. He has been an old, I think, Kyokushin karate guy, also Kaju Kembo, I believe he's trained in, but he's really kind of brought the theory of it together, and was a significant part of my foundation for understanding of how to address violence. There he is again. Oh yeah, by the way, here, notice he's doing the Mozambique. He's giving me the 2 to the chest, 1 to the head. I thought that was hilarious. I use that now in photos if you ever see. Again, security, there's BJ Penn, MMA guy. At Extreme Couture here, this is Mark Hominick, Mark the Machine Hominick there, really renowned for his conditioning, but lightweight, I believe lightweight or featherweight even, a UFC fighter. Carl Parisian, this is at an MMA Expo. He is trained by Gokor Chichivian. I can never pronounce the guy's last name right, but just a judo phenom. Shoni Carter. There's Shoni again at work. There's Gray Maynard. There's another photo. I met Gray Maynard a week after my first Muay Thai fight. We'll get to that. Here's my Irish stick fighting instructor. I included this. This is the one photo I have of him. We parted ways on not the best of terms. It is what it is. But I got to fight in the first sport codified version of Irish stick fighting ever on the planet. So I got to be a part of the sports or the arts history, and which is really cool. And I did that after only about 14 hours of training. I did a weekend training course with him, and I fought his kind of right-hand protege who trained with him for 4 years solid. And I lost the fight at the end of the day, but it was a really great experience. And I had to jump with the chance to be a part of that kind of history. So that was cool. Just a seminar from the first place I was able to teach my own brand of self-defense. And this was at CrossFit. I believe it was called CrossFit Connection in Burlington. So it was really special for me to be there and to teach there. So, and this here was the very first public seminar I taught, and that was at a hotel, Delta Hotels there in, I believe it was in Kitchener. So that is that. Okay, I'm just going to take you through a little bit of this. Where do we go here? Okay, let's go to women's self-defense. So one of the things I love to do is we did a lot of free seminars for women. I did some solo seminars where I was teaching them strict self-defense. I also have some up there where I was partnering with a friend of mine whose specialty was counter custody, so how to escape restraints. It would be duct tape, handcuffs, zip ties, and stuff like that. So we'd split it half the day. We'd be teaching them physical self-defense skills, and the other day would be physical counter custody skills. So on the right here of the photo is a visitor from Ireland, Fiona. So she came and actually trained with me when I was in Ireland at one of the seminars I did in Dublin. And then on the left there is my wife, Kat. And that's Don Go. He's a Toronto stuntman. He's the one that's in there in the Spartan training gear. This is one of the free self-defense seminars we did at the bar I was working at when I was in Toronto, Night Owl Toronto. And we during the course of these seminars, we probably had about 300 women come through over the course of 2 months to take our course. So that was pretty cool. It's another women's self-defense course. This was a corporate one. And this is the type of stuff that we would train them. So they'd come for, let me just pause this. They come for a day of training, maybe 4 hours, 5 hours, having been totally green, not knowing anything. We'd run them through basically a crash course, the same kind of information you're going to get today. And then we do a simulated attack here. So I'd put on the Spartan suit, and which is an impact reduction suit, so they can hammer on you a little bit and it's not going to send you to the hospital. And we just kind of grab them randomly and see how they respond. And there was no right or wrong answer. It was more about the fear inoculation, getting them just to have to confront somebody. So it isn't about really, and as you can see, it's not about standing toe to toe. It's not necessarily about being some super friggin' ninja, but it's about just being able to deal with that fear. And of course, they know they're safe here. I've worked for 4 or 5 hours with them to build a level of trust. I'm still kind of a stranger to them, but screaming at them, grabbing them, whipping them around a little bit, just to kind of give them that fear response and force them to deal with that. So the objective here for them is to get to the other side to an exit door, and they have to just walk across the floor. And they know at some point I'm going to engage with them. They don't know how it's going to happen entirely. So again, just trying to get their adrenaline going and force them to act. So I'll start this one again. Giving them a reaction. So obviously if they hammer me in the face or something, I have the protective mask on. It doesn't hurt me, but yeah, I need to give them a reaction as if they did hurt me. It also, it's also an exercise in building some confidence, right? If they have confidence in their training, they're more likely to use it on the day. Oh, wrong way. Here we go. Here's another one of these. Oh, there we go. I don't know if you guys can hear this at all. You can write in the comments if you can actually hear this. That'd be great. Then I can know. Okay, obviously I could dummy her here right now, but I'm not going to be doing that. Trying to encourage her to use her physical skills to get out, and then not to hang around, to do what she's got to do and to get out. Trying to encourage her to hit me in the face, not in the chest, right? Right, trying to encourage her to do some smart targeting here. I think if I remember, this one did pretty good. Yeah, she's pretty scrappy. Oh, yeah, don't want to do that. But she's still fighting. That's good. And she gets out and goes. That's great. Oh, no, she's still going. Good. Okay, so they're making mistakes, and then that's when reality happens. Of course, you're going to make some mistakes. Good. And at her earliest opportunity, she's leaving. And this one, she's so meek and so shy and so quiet. And really unsure of herself. She's giving me her hands there. I think I grab it. Oh, there you go. There she goes. Good job. Screaming at her. I don't know if you can hear that, guys, but I'm screaming at her. Trying to encourage her to hit smart targets to cause that reactionary gap so she can get up and go. Awesome. So that's kind of what you expect at a women's self-defense seminar. I'll go over to instructor training here. Oh, before I do that, I mentioned teaching at high school. So there's a school in Hamilton. It's called the Hillfield Strathallan College. And I got to teach there for, oh goodness, like again, 16, maybe 17 years in a row. And it got to the point, like in the hallway there, they'd have their graduating class photo. And after 17 years, I'm looking at every single graduating class. And I realized that every single student in this school has been through one of my courses. And I've taught literally every student in the school. And it's just a real honor. This gentleman here is Wade. He was also working in executive protection. And I got to meet him. So that was pretty cool. A solid guy. Wade, so if you're watching this, buddy, I miss you. I hope you're doing well. And these are just some of the classes. These are the girls' classes. I did do grade 9 and grade 10, girls and boys classes. So, but I just pulled some of the girls' pictures up here. And I'll show you this one video here of a girl named Lauren. And let me just double check to make sure that you can hear me. I got comments. I don't know if you can hear me or if you can hear the screen here. So I'm going to share this testimonial. Hopefully you're able to hear it. Oh, okay, hold on a sec here. I see I'm not sharing the appropriate window. Let's try this again. Stop. Let's go share window. Okay, share entire screen. Okay, also share audio. Okay, this is important. So Lauren did a grade 9 women's course, girls course rather, where she did essentially 3 hours of training. 3 gym classes, and then she went on March break the following year to some chalet. And again, it's a private school. They do have money, so she's off with her family on some ski trip for March break. And I just want you to hear recount her story here. So sharing my screen. Here we go.
So 2 years ago, I was walking back to my chalet, and like I used to do that every day when we were up north, and I was on the trail on my own, and it's kind of in a woodsy area, and there was another guy on the trail, which was normal because there were always people walking and hiking on the trail. And when he approached me, he asked me if I wanted to ride home, which was kind of weird because he didn't have a car or anything. He kept telling me that it was just parked on the side of the road and that we could just go walk over to it. And so I tried to step to the side and continue on the trail, but he grabbed me and he started to pull me in the opposite direction. And that's when I kind of had my instincts kick in, and I used the self-defense training that I had learned the year before, and I elbowed him and ran to the nearest main road and found the first person I could and got a ride home.
Okay, so you can see how kind of shaken up she was, even just recounting that story. But I think that story, I won't share all the other videos, but I'll just share that one because I think it goes to my point, which is some random guy on some trail went to grab her. Now, 70% of the time, in overall, the attack, for women anyways, your attacker is going to be someone that's known to you. It's very rarely going to be a stranger. That's just how it usually works out. In this case, it was a stranger. And she wasn't going to the ground with him. She wasn't doing some mixed martial arts flying elbow or something crazy. She just did one elbow, one thing that caused a reaction from him. He let go of her, and that was her opportunity. That was that reactionary gap I mentioned. That was that 1 second window of opportunity that she chose to use to run. Her instincts kicked in, and she got out of there. And sometimes it's as simple as that. One thing, she did one thing. She threw an elbow at his face, and that wasn't complicated, and it worked. And did she do the right thing? Sure she did. She's alive to tell the story, so she did the right thing. Do I need to share any? I will share one more folder with you here. Where are we? Boop. One more, and then we'll get to the goods. I'm just realizing now that all those women's self-defense videos I shared, you probably didn't even get to see. So that's okay. Instructor training. So I did travel and teach some instructors around the world. And these are some instructors from Toronto. We have Rui, Scott, Jim, Dave, and Mike. Again, there's a collection. There are 2 of them are correctional officers. One of them went on to be RCMP. Another one is a security manager. We have Jim in the middle there. He's just was my first ever private student and has stuck with me all the way through. Dave over there with the big orange beard, the ginger. He's a Muay Thai fighter. He is also he's been a long time bouncer, a long time in private security. So, anyways, they came and trained. And this is Jim's instructor test, his pressure test, where you have to fight 2 guys at the same time. The instructions were 100% to the body and 20% to the head, in terms, not percentage shots, but in terms of power. 20% power to the head, 100% to the body. And they did a technical component earlier. So really this is just to test their drive and their fighting spirit. And whether he fucks up or not, the whole idea of this is that you don't give up, and no matter how tired you are, you still keep going. And that was the idea behind these pressure tests. So we have him fight for, I cut the video here at parts, but it was for 3 minutes. He had to fight for 3 minutes against 2 people. And they're instructed just to stay on top of him constantly. As soon as he gets up, they're not to give him any rest. So that was the pressure test for the instructors there. And he can tell you how exhausted he was. So anyway, blah blah blah. I do have some videos and photos here from teaching in England and Ireland and stuff like that. But you can just take my word for it. Oh, I did find something cool today that I'll show you because I forgot entirely about it. Let me just share the window here, and then we'll get on. I promise you. Window. Okay, check this out. I forgot. So one of the guys I did stunts with was a rugby coach. He's from Australia, and he was coaching the Canada Wolverines. And I got to go and get involved with them and work as a defensive movement coach. They're looking for some sort of outside the box training. And I always loved rugby as a sport. It just really it's like the art of moving through people. And if you've ever been in fights, it's kind of more like rugby or football than it is about martial arts. It kind of resembles that more. And so I just really fascinated with rugby. And so when I was asked to come on board as a defensive movement coach for the Canada Wolverines, I was honored, and I spent part of a season doing that. So I wasn't heavily involved with them, but there was a couple opportunities there, and I just thought that was really cool. And when I was looking for some photos today, I found this online, and I was like, oh yeah, I forgot about that. So anyway, pretty cool stuff. Okay, so here we go. I'm going to go through a PowerPoint presentation with you, which lays the groundwork and the theory of the self-defense that I teach. And I'll be paying attention to the comments here as well. So please do leave a comment. If you're on Rumble and want to leave a rant, I will be reading the rants at the end of the stream. Okay, if you're on any of the platforms and you do want to leave a comment, please do, or a question rather, and then I will get to those as well. Okay, so boom, boom. Here we go. Present, share screen, window. Here we go. Okay, so let me just go out here and bring up the PowerPoint. All right, here it is. Interpersonal violence prevention and management, risk, threat, and crisis management for civilians. So we're going to just go through these. I'm going to read the slides to you. At the end of the presentation, I'm going to go look at the comment section and see if any of you have asked any questions, and I'll address them there. And then after that, we're pretty much going to wrap up. This is all I have to say for you guys tonight. And again, if you do appreciate this, I do have a PDF version of this, as well as some recommended reading and stuff like that. We'll cover that at the end, but you can get a copy of it for free. You can just message me and we'll set that up, okay? But anyways, Kennedy Tactical Concepts, you'll see this logo everywhere. The logo on the right here, Kennedy Tactical Concepts, that was my business in Ontario. Again, I don't do this for a living anymore. I am in documentary photography and filmmaking, but this is just a peek back, a peek back into my past life. I just thought that I could bring some value to you as we see a lot of violence on the rise. And I did make the comment that in terms of women, 70% of the violence you're going to face is by someone that you know. But with all the crazy immigration that's happening now, and with the polarizing ideologies happening, even with non-immigrants, violence it's very prevalent nowadays. And so I just wanted to give you some tools, whatever I can do to help. So at any rate, situational awareness is key. Okay. It said that the best defense is a good offense, but that's actually the second best defense. The best defense is actually not being there in the first place. Okay. Avoid going to mass public gatherings. I know protests, a lot of people find protests important, but if you avoid those things, you're going to avoid the violence largely. I would especially recommend, especially nowadays, that you leave your children out of protests, because if something happens, God forbid, that you could have prevented that by not being there in the first place. At the very least, please look after your children and make sure that they aren't there. You saw my photo with Rory Miller there earlier, and I really like his quote here, because it kind of outlines the use of force kind of spectrum here. It's better to avoid than to run, better to run than to de-escalate, better to de-escalate than to fight, and better to fight than to die. Yeah. In Canada, you actually have a duty to retreat. So I know this is different for the US viewers, but in Canada, if you're able to leave, you have a legal obligation to, which means if you don't, I'm not saying that, morally, ethically, you'd be wrong in physically responding to somebody. I'm just telling you, by the letter of the law, if you want to argue self-defense, you have to also be able to articulate why you were not able to leave, and why you were not able to de-escalate, and why you weren't, if you had to kill the person, like why was the level of force you used justified? Why couldn't you do something lesser? And is it bullshit? I think so, but that's just the way the Canadian law is. So just keep that in mind. You're going to have to be able to articulate why you did what you did, and why a lesser level of force was not sufficient to deal with the scenario. And so if you remember this quote, it's going to go a long way into kind of informing your actions. It's better to avoid than to run, better to run than to de-escalate, better to de-escalate than to fight, better to fight than to die. Now, how do we recognize violence before we're in a violent encounter, right? How can I build my situational awareness so I know when violence is about to pop off? How do I know when it's about to pop off so I can remove myself from the equation from the get-go? And a good way to think about this is a mental model called the color codes. And this was by Jeff Cooper, Colonel Jeff Cooper. He was in the U.S. military, and I do not remember his what part of the army he was in or what his job was. So forgive me for, there's some people in the comments will probably know this better than I do, and they can add to that. But thinking about the threat level color codes is a great way to build your situational awareness. And it's more like a color spectrum. Okay. Not the rainbow spectrum. I know it is fucking Pride Month, but we're not talking about that. But condition white, this is your baseline. This is your oblivious. This is, you got your earphones in, you're on your phone, you have no idea what's around you, you're not paying any attention. You should never be in condition white. Okay, condition white is if you're at home and you have your doors locked and you're watching a movie with your spouse or something, okay, sure. you're going to be kind of switched off. You feel safe and secure. If you're out in public, if you're at work, if you're at school, if you're at the gym, you should never, ever, ever be completely switched off like this. You should always be at least minimally aware of your surroundings, which brings us to condition yellow, which is where you're minimally aware of your surroundings. I was just at the gym today, but an hour before I came on this podcast, and I did leg day, which for the record is my least favorite and most favorite day, because leg day is great, but it also is brutal every time. But there's people in and out of the gym, new guys coming in, they're looking around at you, sizing you up, seeing how much you're lifting, whatever the case is. But just be aware of the people around you and the things happening around you. So if something does start to escalate, you're already aware of their presence. You're already aware that something is happening, and you're not caught totally off guard. Back to walking around looking on your phone with your headphones on. If you're out in public and if you do have headphones on, keep the music. Two tactics I've heard that are helpful for this: either keep the music at a volume that you can also hear what's going on beyond the headphones. You don't want to be completely unaware, or have one earphone in and one earphone out, so you can have one ear in the real world and one ear on whatever you're listening to, just as a suggestion. Okay. Condition orange. Okay, so now an anomaly happens, and we're going to get to what an anomaly is. But there's an anomaly that happens. So let's just use that gym example, okay? I'm aware of the people around me. I'm doing my thing, and I just hear someone like scream, someone yell. That's an anomaly. Not normal for someone. Maybe they can grunt at the gym, but if they're like screaming, that's kind of not normal. And so that puts me in condition orange. My alert level is heightened a little bit because something out of the ordinary has occurred. So I got to pay attention to it to see if I need to do anything about it or if I could just leave it alone, right? An anomaly is I'm walking my dog through the neighborhood, and then I hear a dog barking. That's an anomaly. Okay, that's something that raises my awareness level. I look, okay, the dog's on a chain or the dog's behind a fence. I don't have to do anything more about it. But if the dog was not on a chain or the dog was not blocked by a fence and was running towards me, then have to do something about it. So that's kind of what condition orange is. Okay. And again, it doesn't have to do with just self-defense. This is just good for life in general, right? When you cross the street, you look both ways, right? Your condition yellow. A car is coming, that's condition orange. You let it pass by and you're good to go. Okay. So this can apply anywhere in your life. Condition red. Okay. You've identified a danger. A dog is off the chain. The car is on the curb coming towards me. The person yelling at the gym that I mentioned is looking at you, screaming at you. Okay, so you got to do something about it now. Okay, you have to either remove yourself from the situation, whatever that scenario is, or it's going to escalate into physical aggression or harm to yourself. Okay, and when it says here on the slide, be prepared for UDT and or UFO, that stands for Urban Defensive Tactics or Urban Force Options, which is the particular branding of my self-defense system. Urban Defensive Tactics was self-defense. Urban Force Options was meant for security, so use of force for security and law enforcement. So that's where that comes from if you're curious. But here, condition red, okay, you're sitting on the bus, some guy's being weird, you're in condition orange because you notice the weird guy, and then you see him reach into his pocket and pull out a knife, or he sits down beside you and starts talking to you rudely or something. Something happens. You're like, okay, I need to deal with this now. I can't just observe it. I have to deal with it, take action, or it could escalate to something a lot worse. And then finally is condition black. Condition black is you're under attack. You are, and if you're under attack, by the way, it's going to be really hard to get your head and your wits about you, especially if you're caught off guard. And in an asymmetrical criminal attack, and when I call it asymmetrical, I mean they caught you off guard, they have a weapon, there's more than one of them, or all of the above. Things are not even. In a mixed martial arts fight, in a boxing match, you're the same weight class, approximately the same skill level. There's a referee, there's rules. They want to keep things as fair and even as possible. Well, when a criminal attacks, it's asymmetrical. They want to make it as uneven as possible. And I would suggest for self-defense, you want to make it in your favor, stack it in your favor as uneven as possible as well. But here you're in crisis, okay? If you were not aware already beforehand, if you were in condition white, you're going to go from white to black right away. Okay. If you have a base level situational awareness, you're able to recognize things around you and pay attention to the people around you and pay attention to the things that are happening. There's a greater chance of you being able to avoid this. Okay. Example, you are at a train station waiting for the train to come. It's summer, it's hot out. There's just people in shorts and t-shirts and tank tops and stuff like that. Some guy just kind of looking a little suspicious. He has a really big hoodie on or a thick jacket or something like that, and maybe a backpack. Why would that be odd? Well, that would be odd because he's weird because he's wearing like winter clothes, or he's wearing a thick coat or long clothes, when otherwise it would be normal to wear shorts and t-shirt because it's blistering hot outside. Okay. If you ignored that and weren't paying attention to that, maybe he pulls out a gun that he's hiding. Maybe he sets down the bag and leaves it and walks away from it. Maybe it's a bomb. If that bomb goes off, you're in condition black. It is too late. If he starts opening fire because it was a gun he was hiding under his coat, it's too late. So if you're able to pay attention to that, maybe you could have got up and moved. Maybe you could have got up and gone to security to report it. You could have done something to better your situation. So situational awareness is the key to surviving before you even get to a violent scenario. And forgive my examples, they're not perfect analogies, okay, but I'm just trying to illustrate the point. Okay, so how can I learn to identify a threat? Excuse me, a little sip here. I like to look at behavioral awareness, or behavioral analysis, excuse me. So establish a baseline. We talked about this. What is the norm for the environment you're in? In the train station example, it's hot outside. It's baseline for somebody to be drinking a cool beverage, wearing summer clothes. If someone's wearing those long clothes, those hot, like a hot coat or winter coat, sweaters or something like this, that's not really baseline. If you're sitting at a seminar, you go to a seminar, or you're in church or something like that, everyone's sitting in a pew listening to the speaker, and someone is just darting up and down the aisle, okay, or just really fidgety in the seat or something. That's kind of an anomaly. That is something that is not the baseline behavior. So anything that is baseline, great, it's normal for that scenario. Anything that is an anomaly, which is something that stands out from the baseline, that is what you're going to pay attention to, okay, because that is going to be your indicator that there might be something awry, might be something amiss. There are 4 pillars of behavioral awareness, and this comes from the book Left to Bang. I'm going to reference these at the end of the podcast, okay, and I have a recommended reading list for you where a lot of this information comes from. So the 4 pillars. Pillar 1 is individual people. You're going to pay attention to individual people. You're going to look at the clusters of their behavior, okay? And there are 4 different clusters that we're going to talk about, which is dominant clusters, submissive clusters, uncomfortable cluster, or comfortable cluster. We're going to get into this. And you're going to look at kinesics, biometrics, iconography, and emblems. Again, these terms might not mean anything to you right now, but we're going to work our way through this, okay? And please, again, leave your questions in the comments. I'm happy to answer them to the best of my ability. Okay, the second pillar is groups of people. So the relationships between individuals, and more specific with this, how they interact with each other in terms of the space, in terms of their body space. So proxemics, we call that, how people relate to each other with the space around them. How can you tell if someone's intimate? How can you tell if someone's a friend or a known to them? How can you tell if someone's acquaintances or strangers, right? Think of if think of your wife, your husband, boyfriend, girlfriend, or your children or something. You're not going to be going up and hugging and kissing strangers. No, but if you see someone kissing, okay, well, they have an intimate knowledge of each other. If they're holding hands, there's an intimate knowledge of each other. If you have your buddy, you're hanging out with your buddy, having a beer with your buddy, you might be sitting beside each other at the campfire, but you're not going to have your hand on his leg. Acquaintances, you're going to be standing a little bit further apart. You're not going to have physical contact with them probably. Okay, maybe a handshake, something like that. And strangers, of course, you're going to keep the most distance from. And a lot of times strangers have a physical barrier between them, right? You go to McDonald's, you order your Happy Meal, you order your coffee. There's a stranger that's a cashier at the grocery store even taking your order, and you have kind of a barrier between you even, okay? Which is the cashier desk. Not talking about the stupid plexiglass things, although that's a thing now too. Okay, pillar 3 is how people relate to their environment. We're going to talk about geographics, which is habitual areas or anchor points. What does that mean? Well, habitual area essentially is, you go to the legislature in Edmonton, there's protests and stuff. There's a lot of people on the legislature grounds walking around, maybe a shopping mall, right? People, a food court at a shopping mall. If you're at a club, a dance club or something, it's maybe the dance floor. And there's just places where people are normally going to go. A park, a public park, right? A playground. These are habitual areas where kind of everybody goes. And an anchor point is restricted access, right? An example, here in Valley View, we had a ribbon cutting for when they resurfaced the airport. And the premier actually came up here to do an announcement. And so the airport is actually a public area, so it's a habitual area. But because the premier was there, she had the Alberta sheriffs that were actually basically formed a gate. They formed the checkpoint there where they were allowing or disallowing people to come in based on who they were. And because I was doing photography for that event, I was allowed in. But that's an anchor point, right? It was restricted access. So just to kind of get you thinking about that. And also, someone's familiar with the surroundings or unfamiliar with their surroundings. Right? If someone walks into a church or a government building or, something like that, or into a gym or whatever, and if they just walk around like they own the place, they know what's what and where everything is, you don't really ever pay attention to them. But if they're looking around, they don't know where to go, they seem like they're lost, that would warrant you paying more attention to them because it tells you they don't belong there. And if they don't belong there, that's an anomaly that you'd pay attention to. And there's the collective mood, right? Best example of this is, when you're a kid and, you walk into a place, you walk in your house, you're in your buddy's place, and they're fighting with their parents, or they're fighting with their sister, or you walk into somewhere where someone's in some sort of conflict, and it's just like a really weird feeling, right? You can pick up on that, right? There's a collective mood. So we call the atmospherics. So is the atmosphere positive or negative overall, right? If there's negative atmospherics, you might want to remove yourself from the situation. If it's positive atmospherics, maybe you stay. Okay, just as an example. Ooh, my bad. Okay, so kinesics. We're going to talk about this in depth now. So it is the study of body language. Okay, so one gesture is insufficient to determine potential for violence. We rely on 3 indicators. Okay, why 3? Because that establishes a pattern of behavior. We rely on 3 indicators to form a cluster. So that's what a cluster is. It's 3 individual elements coming together to form a pattern or a theme, which can help you predict more accurately someone's potential for violence. Okay, we rely on 3 indicators to form a cluster leading to the same conclusion. Kinesics don't count on facial expressions, rather body language below the shoulders to avoid facial misinterpretation. People can be very well-practiced liars, but quite often they're going to have a physical tell, and so we're going to look for those certain things, okay? I look for that. I worked as a bouncer and a doorman for far too long, for about 2 decades, and people get violent, people are on drugs. You get to learn their body language and learn when someone's about to take a swing. You get to learn when someone's going to do something or how they're feeling based on their body language. And I'm not looking at their face. Okay, even though their face can give you some biometrics, we'll talk about that, which is what their eyes are doing, what their teeth are doing. You can talk about if they're flushing their face. I can tell you some certain things as well, but we're looking more for the body language here. So the limbic system is going to cause the body to get prepared for fight, flight, or freeze in response to threats. We're going to talk about this in detail as well. And again, this is from Left of Bang. This is one of the books I recommend you read if you want to understand the subject of violence and situational awareness. Okay, so the dominant cluster behavior, the fight response is defined by the behavior people show when attempting to make themselves appear larger. What are you looking at, bro? What the fuck? Get louder, get bigger, make yourself appear more intimidating. And the submissive cluster is the absence of the fight response. Okay, people are trying to make themselves appear smaller. Okay, so that's a dominant versus submissive cluster. Okay, man spreading versus crossing your legs, Justin Trudeau style. There's a dominant versus submissive element there. Okay, comfortable cluster is when you don't think there's a threat. Okay, behavior that shows openness. Okay, this is like alpha behavior, right? You're sitting. I was at the hot tub the other day at a local multiplex, just relaxing. And I had my head back, I had my eyes closed, my arms sprawled, and I felt pretty safe. Like I'm pretty known in the community. No one's going to come and try to slit my throat while I'm sitting in the hot tub here. I hope. And so I can afford to expose my throat and close my eyes. It doesn't even matter because I'm comfortable. I'm confident that there's no threat here. Okay, an uncomfortable cluster would be the opposite, right? So it's the flight response that you think there's some sort of threat to you. And so you're acting in a way that is indicative of that. Defined by the behavior people show when they're displaying or distancing or blocking behavior to protect themselves, right? Someone comes into the room, that person you've had some conflict for, and you're avoiding eye contact. You're going out of your way to not walk past them, to go around them. I also have this in the town, but that's another story. So yeah, so comfortable cluster versus uncomfortable cluster, which is basically based on your perception of the level of threat that exists in your environment. Interested or uninterested cluster. Okay, where is a person's attention focused? Okay, is someone staring at you? That might indicate something. Are they paying any attention to you? That might also indicate something. So these are the types of things that we're going to be paying attention to when it comes to a person's body language. Okay, so this is what I was talking about when I said at a bar, you're looking at people, or as a balancer, I'm looking at people and seeing what's happening to determine whether they're about to make a swing or something. Okay, they're ignoring you. They're asking the same amount of the question over and over and over again. They're venting emotionally, refusing to comply with your verbal request. In my case, it's like trying to kick them out of the bar, and they're not leaving. They seesaw movement, taking a defensive stance, hiding, or they come into your space and invade your personal space. A lot of these, when it comes to repetitious questioning, ignoring, ceasing all movement, this also shows that maybe the wheels are turning in here. They're thinking about taking a swing. Okay, and one of the other, do I have it on this next slide? No. Okay, some of the things they would do is you could see like them blading their bodies, taking a defensive stance. They're kind of ready to strike, and their body's giving away subtle tells that they're preparing for a fight. And if you could pay attention to those, you can be ready for it when it happens. Okay. Proxemics, excuse me, the way humans use space to communicate. So I did up this little chart myself. There's you, self in the middle. Okay, someone that has an intimate relationship with you, and this is just generally how humans organize themselves with space in like across cultures. So you can do this as a study, like screenshot this or download this photo, or again, if you want the PDF, I can send it to you. And just go out in public and use it as a tool to judge, okay, those people over there have this type of relationship, those people here have this type of relationship based on this space. By the way, for physical self-defense, if you can keep people out of your intimate and personal space, you have a far better chance of defending yourself. Excuse me. Basically, if you can keep them in the social or public area, okay, 9 feet or more away, you have a lot better chance of defending yourself. If you let someone get into your intimate space, by the way, all physical violence happens in the intimate space. Unless they're shooting you with a gun, you can do that from the public distance. Okay, but if someone's going to put their hands on you, they have to be allowed into your intimate space. Now, I'm not saying that means they're intimate with you. I just mean that that's the closest they get to you. So if you can control the space around you by identifying anomalies, by having your situational awareness, and by removing yourself from the situation before it escalates to some sort of violence, you're ahead of the curve, okay? At any rate, about 1.5 feet from you is your intimate space. Up to 4 feet is your personal space. Up to 9 feet is the social space. Okay, where your acquaintances and stuff would be. And then out beyond that is the public, okay, people everywhere. Pay attention when you go meet somebody. When you meet someone for the first time, okay, maybe you shake your hand, but how far do they stand from you? How close do they stand from you? Also, I've had this a number of times. How do I know when I meet somebody? Sometimes I know that there's something off right away. I'd say to my wife, I've met some of my stepson's friends, like dad. This one case I remember, and he was just like really close into my space talking to me, and I'm like, there's something wrong with him. I don't know what it is, but I don't like him, and I want our kid away from him. Something wrong with him. And as it turned out, there was something wrong with him. But the tell right off the bat was that I just met him. I have no relationship with him, but he's getting into my intimate space. So pay attention to these sorts of things. Okay, sorry, I just said this. So intimate zone reserved for intimate relationships, personal zone reserved for friends and acquaintances, social public zones, strangers, people you just met, you kind of keep them at that space. And generally speaking, you don't have to focus on this. This is just going to happen naturally. It's how we naturally organize ourselves. But pay attention when someone tries to breach this. That's going to be your tell. Okay, so what's a proxemic pull and a proxemic push? Okay, a positive proxemic pull is the physical movement toward a person or object considered to be attractive, safe, and positive. Okay, there's that attractive girl over there. You want to go talk to her. She has a positive proxemic pull. Okay, you go over to her. She may perceive it as negative, but again, the analogies aren't perfect here. A negative proxemic pull is that pull towards a person for the object of getting close to cause damage. So do I want to go ask that girl for a number? Do I want to go compliment her? Or do I want to go knock her out or or drug her drink? Okay, there's a positive and a negative to that, but it's a proxemic pull. Okay, and the proxemic push is a physical movement away from a person, likely caused by things that are considered harmful, unappealing, and negative. Okay, someone pulls a gun out of their waistband, it's going to have a proxemic push because you are going to scatter. Okay, so as an example. Okay, so biometric cues here, automatic responses to stress. And these, I got really good at this in terms of drug use, working at the bars, because I'm working on the door and I have a very small amount of time to interact with the person while I check their ID to make sure they're okay to come in. And you have to have these snap judgments. Do I let this person in or do I not? And a lot of the times you can look at their eyes, you can see what their face is doing. And of course you get used to hearing the same kind of lies over and over again. So you get used to that. But by paying attention to not just their kinesics, their body language, but also their biometrics, which are things that they can't control, are their tells. And it will tell you that maybe something bigger than what you see on the surface level is going on. Okay, for example, heart rate. Let's look at this. Heart rate, 115 beats per minute, you get fine motor skill deterioration. 145 beats per minute, complex motor skill deterioration. What's the difference? Complex motor skill is, so you have gross motor movement, which is like swinging your arm like this, one large muscle group in one direction. Complex motor skill would be like a push and a pull, like you're pushing something this way and pulling something this way. That's complex motor skill. And fine motor skill is like little joint manipulation, tying your shoelaces, stuff like that. And this is why most martial arts, I would say, are bullshit when they have like joint manipulation and stuff and pressure points. I think pressure points are bullshit because when you're in a fight, when you're attacked, your heart rate is going to be spiking and you're not going to be able to stick your thumb on an exact spot. And by the way, especially when the adrenaline is going, they're not going to probably mostly feel that. So I don't even believe in pressure points. I think they're bullshit. And this is why, because the science just tells us that your heart rate is going to be going too fast for it to be effective. And that's why we want to focus on gross motor movements. We'll get to that. Now, anger and embarrassment, okay, reddening in the face, neck, and extremities. Fear, there's a paling of skin. The blood is drawn away from the extremities, right? Body says fight's impending. It thinks that there's some sort of threat. And so the blood is going to go to the internal organs and stuff like that, because if you think that your finger's going to get bitten off or you're going to get cut or something like that, your body is trying to preserve that blood and put it to where it's necessary, right? It's on like life support mode, basically. Pleasure, positive. Times of fear, your pupils will dilate. Okay, you can see that if someone's on drugs, MDMA, psilocybin, stuff like that, their eyes are going to be like fucking plates, right? If people are blinking like a madman, okay, that shows that there's stress going on. If someone has a dry mouth and swallowing, you'll see this too. They're hiding an emotional state. If someone gets nervous, right? You'll see this put in police interrogations, right? Or if your spouse or someone is lying to you and you watch them swallowing and they get a dry mouth, it's an indicative that something is going on there. Okay. Okay. Iconography and emblems. This is important. Iconography are symbols, clothing, graffiti, flags, signage, etc. Displays indicative of an individual's or group's beliefs, superstitions, ideologies. Someone's wearing a cross, maybe they're Christian. Is it a crucifix? Maybe they're Catholic. Someone has a rainbow flag, okay, it's a pride parade, that makes sense, or a protest. these are, you can tell a lot about someone by the stuff they wear. Are they wearing a tap out or an affliction shirt or something like that? Okay, maybe they train in mixed martial arts. Okay, so you can tell a lot by the things that people wear. Emblems are culturally specific emblematic gestures indicating greeting department, replying, insulting. It could be anything, but it's a physical symbol, a physical gesture that represents something. So a very common emblem here is this. What does that mean? Right. That means not good, but we all recognize this, right? I remember teaching English in China, and you motion somebody over like this, not like this. This is come here. This is come here, prostitute. So you'd summon a prostitute by going up like this, like come here, and down here. So they do it like this. This is just for everybody else. In Canada, you'd probably just go like this, like, hey, come here, come here, come here. And nobody thinks twice about it. But if that was in China, that's different. So just as an example of how it's culturally specific gestures or symbols that represent something. Okay. If someone does this to you, they're probably not happy with you. Unless it's a buddy, there's a context where they're fucking around with you, joking around with you, okay? Okay, so habitual areas, like I mentioned before, and geographics are essentially a public gathering place, such as a mall, movie theater, park, etc. Anybody can be there, whereas anchor points, the key point there is that is restricted access. So I worked at, I did security for the BPM Music Festival in Playa del Carmen in Mexico in 2017. And of course, there was cartel activity there, cartel drug activity. And so there's the main areas where everybody is allowed to be. And then there was the bathrooms, and the cartel would sell the drugs at the bathrooms. So that was their anchor point where the cartel activity was. I was also in charge of the anchor point, which was the VIP stage. They wanted to make sure that the cartel was not behind there to be photographed with any of the celebrity DJs or whatever the hell they had. So we had to keep them out, which was a fun time. But anyway, so that's the difference between a habitual area and anchor point. Everybody's allowed there. Select people are allowed there, essentially. Okay. We talked about atmospheric, so the overall feeling in a place. Okay, so there's, if it's a happy, cheerful vibe, everyone's having a good time, you don't really feel like you're in danger there. Versus negative atmospherics, okay, a cold or angry vibe, fearful vibe, and it just shifts really quick. It can shift really quick in a room from positive to negative. Probably takes a lot less to shift from negative to positive. Okay, example. Okay, stand-up comedy. Guy on the stage is making these jokes. It's hilarious. Everyone's laughing. It's a good time. Someone in the audience takes offense to one of his jokes and starts heckling him and shouting back. All right. Now the overall atmosphere, the general vibe in the place is starting to shift from positive to negative because this person is being a thermostat essentially for that place and changing the vibe from a positive to a negative vibe. So again, as an analogy. Okay. So that's situational awareness. Now, different types of violence, I think it's important to recognize here. And I mentioned Rory Miller again. I draw a lot of this from him and his writing. Okay. And again, that time I was able to train with him in 2010. Very honored to do so. There's two main types of violence. Okay. There's, as you see here, antisocial aggression, asocial violence. And the way that I like to draw an analogy here is think of a lion versus a lion. How does that fight go down? Well, they're jockeying over territory, they're jockeying over status, they're jockeying over resources. Very rarely is it going to end in death. One of them gets scratched up and beat up and ends up submitting, and then he leaves or gets excommunicated there, and he has to leave the territory with his life intact, usually. Okay. The point wasn't to commit the violence. The point was to get the resource. The resource was food. The resource was a mate, whatever the case is. Now, asocial violence would be the lion and the gazelle. Well, the lion wants to kill that gazelle because it wants that gazelle. So that is the difference between in a lion terminology in the animal world of the antisocial aggression and the asocial violence. And we're no different than that, really. Okay. There's ritualized jockeying for territory or status, right? At a bar, what the fuck are you looking at? I just want to be the big man. It's about having those witnesses around me, about attaining that status versus asocial violence. They want your property, your body, or your life, and their intent is to cause grievous bodily harm or death. That's what they want, and there's different tactics for this, and we're going to get into that, okay? So the monkey dance, this is the famous one from Rory Miller with antisocial aggression, is an aggressive stare or something like that leads to verbal challenge. Maybe you accidentally bump into somebody and they take exception to that. More verbal challenges lead to a square off until eventually one makes contact via a push or something like this. No face contact has been made yet. This physical component escalates back and forth until someone throws a punch, and it's usually the fucking haymaker, overhand right, something like that. And that's the monkey dance. I would call it a monkey dance because it's my inner monkey that feels the status threatened. And so then I can't back down, and this guy can't back down, and it just escalates. The solution to this is actually to give up the status. Apologize. Sorry, man, I'll buy you a drink. I didn't mean to spill your drink. Oh, no, what are you looking at? What are you looking at? Oh, sorry, bro. You look like someone, you look like a buddy of mine, and I just thought it might have been him for a second. Whatever you can do to diffuse it, you can de-escalate this, because violence wasn't the point. Status is the point. And so if you give him the status, is usually going to de-escalate it. Okay, again, nothing is a perfect science. Nothing is ever guaranteed. But generally speaking, if you give up the status and if you exit the scenario, violence is over. Do you feel like a little pussy? Sure, but better than having your skull caved in. I'm just saying. Group monkey dance. Okay, this is the show of group solidarity. It occurs toward an outsider when he infringes on the group's territory, or toward an insider when he is viewed to have breached the group's rules or betrayed them. A group monkey dance strengthens bonds within the group. We've seen this both literally and digitally, right? Where someone breaks the group's rules and they're shamed. I remember, this is, again, going back to my bar stories. Again, this is a large part of my experience, so I'm going to draw on that. We had I was working at that bar that I was doing the women's self-defense at, and there was a group that came up from, I think they were from Baltimore, and they came up for a bachelor party. It was just, they came up to Toronto to do like a pub crawl, basically a club crawl. And they were, well, it was a group of black dudes. And they came, and we were kind of more of like a folky rock country, live music. And they just weren't into the vibe of the bar. They just were into like video games and stuff like that. They just weren't into it. And they wanted to go somewhere else. And so we recommended a club down the street. It was called Blind Tiger. I remember that. And I remember that because I used to park at Blind Tiger because they had some free parking there. And I'd walk to work down the street from there. Anyways, my car got caught up in what became a crime scene, and I wasn't allowed to leave till morning because it was police taped off. And that's why this story sticks out. But these guys came, they're like, hey, where else could we go? We recommend this club, Blind Tiger. It's more of an urban club, more hip hop club, and kind of more their demographic. And so they go there. At the end of the night, something happened there in the night where they were beaking off at somebody else in the club. Now the bachelor, the groom, the guy that was going to get married, got separated from his group and was out in the parking lot waiting for his friends. And these other guys came out that they had some sort of exchange on the inside, but he was alone. They were together, and they killed him that night. They literally beat him to death, punching and kicking, beat him to death. Now, did they intend to kill him? I don't know. Maybe not, maybe. But it was a show of group solidarity. We're all in this together, right? And that's exactly what happened. That was a group monkey dance. So that was something that escalated, and I don't know what happened on the inside there, but it could have been a scenario where they could have de-escalated it. They could have gone to another venue. I don't know what words were exchanged, but it led to a group monkey dance, which led into his death. So that's what I'm saying. Is it worth the point of pride to like puff your chest out and to be the big man? I don't think it is, because who really gives a shit? Because now he's not around anymore. An educational beatdown. Okay, you see this a lot in gangs. Excuse me, an educational beatdown. You keep people in check. Displaying violence as a consequence or rule of territorial infraction can escalate if the victim doesn't acknowledge the alleged wrongdoing. This can be for victim or outside observers. So again, I say gangs, that's a common one. But what about in a domestic relationship, right? Husband, wife, husband's abusive. Wife embarrasses him in front of his friends. And so they get home and he beats her. Like, don't you ever do that again. Don't you ever embarrass me. Don't you ever question me, or whatever the case is. Okay, so that could be an example as well. When it comes to, or it could be also, so that's for the victim, but if it comes to outside observers, right? If you cross me, this is going to happen to you. And again, I think more of gang scenarios and drugs and stuff like that. As an example of that, but that's an educational beatdown. And these again are all under anti-social aggression, right? This is for status, this is for territory, this is for reputation. That's what the stakes are here. Now, can it lead to death and grievous bodily harm? Yes, it can lead to grievous bodily harm, but that wasn't the point. Okay, that is just a byproduct. When we get to asocial violence, that is the point. We're going to see that. Status seeking show, criminal culture. A reputation for unpredictability and violence is a tool to keep people afraid of you. Developing a reputation for violence is a valuable thing toward this end. This was funny. I don't have a reputation for violence, but people knew that I taught combatives. People knew that I fought in Muay Thai. People knew that about me. And in so many of the places I worked security, I had a reputation of being some fucking master ninja. And they're like, oh, I wouldn't want to mess with him. But they never saw me fight. I've had very few fights in my bouncing career. They never saw me, but I had that reputation of it, which I found really interesting. I never did want to fight, never wanted to disappoint them. But in criminal culture, yeah. My wife and I just finished watching Breaking Bad. We finished out the entire show, and it's like a currency. It's a social currency, the reputation for violence in a criminal culture. Territory defense is hardwired into our brain as primates. That may include othering. We see this on the right side of politics here, right? We create an othering. They don't agree with a specific part of me, so they're not one of us. They're not one of us. They are the enemy, or they're just as bad as the enemy because they don't go along with my way of thinking. So it creates a separation of class or even species, making it easier to commit violence, even killing, without the psychological consequences of killing another human. Not saying Israel-Palestine, but, othering, right? They're all Semitic peoples, but they are not the same. They are less than us, and therefore it's easier to justify doing evil things to them one way or the other. Okay, now the actual territory may be physical, the example I just mentioned, or idealized. Okay, in Alberta, we see a lot of that with politics. Okay, so even on the right, you have establishment versus dissident. You have, independents, the Independence Party versus the United Conservative Party versus whatever, versus Take Back Alberta versus whatever. And so there's all these factions. And unless you are 100% on board with one of these factions, you're just as much an enemy as the other one. So we see that a lot. This is anti-social aggression. So what is that? You're jockeying for territory, status, resources, things like this. Violence isn't the point. Reputation and status is the point, right? Because of the benefits that come with that status, I guess we'll say. Okay, here we are. Asocial violence. Okay, the lion and the gazelle. There's two types of predators here. Okay, and they are predators. There's a resource predator and there's a process predator. Now, I'll touch on the process predator because they're a lot more rare. Okay, so this person is like into the process, into the ritual of raping somebody, into the ritual of killing somebody. This is like the Dexter type shit, okay, where they want to do the act, the ritual, because the doing of it is the high that they get, okay? They're completely othered. Very rare percentage of these people exist. They do exist, and you may encounter them, but it's very, very rare. They also learn through trial and error. Okay, you hear about serial killers killing dogs and cats and animals, and then they move on to something else, and then they practice and they get better, and then they maybe kill a person, and maybe their first time killing a person, they were sloppy, and then they got better. So they're learning and they're perfecting their craft. That's their craft. They would consider themselves a craftsman of murder or rape or whatever the case is. And they're getting better at it every time. And when I say getting better at it, I'm getting better and not getting caught. Okay? So yeah, the difference between a process predator and a resource predator is a rapist versus someone who is raped as an opportunist, right? Someone is killed versus someone who is a killer. No, I am a killer. I've perfected that process versus someone who like hit someone in the head. He fell back and cracked his head on the cement. That was manslaughter. I killed the guy, but I didn't mean to kill him. Or maybe I was in anger in the heat of the moment. I caught my wife cheating on me, and I took a knife and I stabbed her and the guy that she was cheating with in bed in the crime of passion, but the process predator is about the act itself. Your resource predator wants something from you. Could be a car, could be cash, could be your purse, could be whatever the case is. So they're other on a scale, right? You're another human being. They don't necessarily want to hurt you. Maybe they just want to snatch your purse, but maybe if you don't cooperate with them, they will use violence to get what they want. Okay. And we see this a lot with a lot of the migrant crimes now, a lot of the violence. It's property crime, it's theft that leads to violence. And again, it could be sexual violence as well. Okay. They want to get off. They're not the rape itself might not be what's turning them on. It's just the end justifying the means. Okay. So the resource predator is about the end, and the process predator is about the means, if that makes sense to you. Okay, so there's two predatory strategies. There's a blitz and a charm. And the charm will turn into a blitz eventually. What I mean is, okay, someone smashes you. Okay, they come at you from behind. Like I said, you're in condition white. You have your headphones on. You're on your phone. You're not paying attention to what's around you. I'm going to steal that iPhone from you. So I come up from behind you. You can't hear me anyways. I smash you on the back of the head. You fall over. I take your phone. Or I don't even smash you. I just snatch your hand and run. Okay. So it's a smash and grab. It's getting in close to you to do what I need to do and then getting out of there. Charm is allowing you, because remember, physical violence has to happen in that intimate zone. So you're allowing me into that intimate zone. So I have to earn your trust, and I use charm as a way to earn that trust. And some of the different charm tactics are force teaming. So this comes out of the book The Gift of Fear by Gavin de Becker. Okay. It establishes a premature trust. So there's an example in the book where this girl comes home in her apartment and she's walking up the stairs and she has some intuition that tells her something's off. And whenever she had a cat at home, and one of the cat food cans out of her grocery bag fell out and went down the stairs down the hall. And she hears this voice. This guy picks it up and says, "Oh, I'll get that for you." And her for some reason, her intuition was just telling her, "No bueno, this isn't good." And he's like, "Oh, okay. Here, let me help you with carry your bags. Let me help you carry your groceries." She's like, "No, I'm okay." He's like, "No, that's okay. That's fine. We can." And the point is, she said no, and he's not accepting her no, right? Excuse me. So, and there was one point in the story where he's like, "Well, come on, no, I'll help you. Besides, we have a hungry cat up there." That's your forced teaming. We. When someone says we, when they really mean I, that should set off an alarm bell, okay, for you. That's forced teaming. Charm and niceness. Remember that charm is a tool. When someone is charming, that's not a compliment. It means they're trying to get something from you. Politicians are charming. Why? They want your vote, okay? They're trying to get something out of you, and that's why they lay on the charm. Charm is nice does not equal good. We tell my kids this all the time. It's a strategy, okay? Just know if someone's trying to charm the pants off you, they want something from you. I remember countless times, and this is why this is always a red flag for me. I was at a work party or Christmas party where you could bring your families. Now, I was just a young bachelor, so I just went by myself. But my coworker, she brought her husband. I never met him before, but he was sitting beside me at the table. And he was telling me how awesome I was, how cool I was, how my vibe was just so cool. "Oh, you remind me of this guy. Oh, you're just so cool. You don't give a shit about anything." And just really blowing smoke up my ass. And did it feel good? Sure, it felt good to be admired by somebody. But you know what? A couple months later, I find out that he was beating his wife that I work with. Oh, okay. It makes sense now to me. You're blowing smoke up my ass. You're basically trying to run interference here. You're trying to win me to your side or whatever the case is. There's some ulterior motive here. And when I mentioned that my stepson's friend's dad that got into my personal space before and that set me off, he was also an ass kisser. And I'm like, "Why are you kissing my ass so much? Do you really like the taste of shit, or there's something else going on here?" And I noticed that when they lay on the charm or when someone is just pumping your tires like crazy, there's something else going on. Let that be a red flag. Too many details. If someone's telling you the truth, they don't have to fill in all the 100 little minute details. Okay, but when someone's just going into great detail in a story they're telling you, it might be a little bit off. Okay, so just know the context in which details are offered. Typecasting. Okay, this one example. We see typecasting is a lot. Okay, when you're arguing across the political spectrum here, you're racist, or you're a homophobe, or you're a transphobe, or you're this, or you're that, and you think, no, I'm not, and then you go have to now you're on your heels, right? Now they have the advantage because now you're trying to prove yourself to this motherfucker who you don't know who they are, nor should you care, but you want to prove that somehow you're a good person. We all want to be good people, right? But now you have to prove to them because they said that you're a bad thing, and so you don't want to be that bad thing. This is called typecasting, and it's a strategy here. Look at this. This is exactly the tactics that they use. Okay, so pay attention to that one. Loan sharking, an offer of help, law of reciprocity. Okay, if I do something for you, you're going to have to do something for me. I got. I won't name names here, but I had somebody loan shark me. They said, hey, would you like this? And and if I say details, I'm going to give away who it is, so I'm not. But I was offered something I didn't ask for. They came to me and they asked me if I would like something, and it was something that I was into, and I said yes, I would like it. And I was like, why are you offering this to me? It's just something in my head. I'm like, is this going to come with an ask later on down the road? And it certainly did come, and it wasn't a big ask, but it was an ask nonetheless. And so I was like, oh, that's why you approached me in the first place, because you had in mind to make this ask. But knowing that a relationship is like a bank account, you wanted to get something from me, so you decided to give me something first, so I'd be more inclined to give you something when it was your time to ask. Just remember, it may be innocuous, like the example in my case, right? No one was harmed. There wasn't anything bad done. But if someone approaches you to give you something, and especially if you didn't ask for their help, just understand that there might be something attached to that. The unsolicited promise. Used to convince us of an intention, but not a guarantee. Be reminded that the promise indicates that they sense you don't trust them and take stock that there's good reason not to, right? I promise I'll do this, or I promise I won't do this. Why are they promising you? You didn't ask for a promise. Why are they promising? Because they sense that you don't trust them. Why don't you trust them? Maybe you should trust your gut. Just saying. Discounting the word no, I used that in the example of the cat food there, where the guy, and this was a real life story, by the way, in that book, The Gift of Fear, where he's like, can I help you? I'll carry your groceries. She said, no, I'm good. And he's like, no, that's okay. Come on, I'll help you. I'll help you along. You don't need to do it by yourself. Besides, we have a hungry cat up there. So there's that force teaming and discounting the word no. They're trying to gain or keep control. So, by the way, if you say no, fucking double down on that. Okay. As it says here, the solution is to get away from the person. And if you can't get away from them physically, assertively, maybe even aggressively and loudly say, I said no. And whatever other expletives you want to add to that, okay? Make it clear what you said and don't let it be glossed over. Sorry about the coughing there. Okay, so once again, here's proxemics, because we're about to get into the physical skills component here. How are we doing for time here? What time are we at? Okay, we're doing good. So again, you have yourself, you have your intimate proxemic zone, which is about 1.5 feet. If you drew a circle around you, you have your personal space, which is 4 feet, your social space, which is 9 feet, and then beyond that is public. And that's kind of generally how people organize themselves naturally. And violence is always going to happen in that intimate zone. So protect your space and you protect yourself. Okay. Okay. How do you get people to stop from breaching your proxemic zones, your intimate zones? Take a nap. Non-aggressive posture. Okay. Non-aggressive posture serves a couple of purposes. So here, that your body is bladed. You're making yourself a smaller target. You're putting your hands up and open. open is important. If I do this, it says I want to fight. If I do this, it says I want to keep you away. It's the exact same thing, but if security cameras are looking at you, if you have witnesses around, people are going to recall you saying this. You're telling the person to get away. Oh, that person didn't want to fight. They were trying to get away. So it creates a positive witness for you. If you're like, yeah, fuck you, come at me, bro, you're not creating positive witnesses. So your self-defense plea is going to be gone out the window, okay, if it comes down to the legal aspect of it. Okay, so hands close to the chest, together at chest height. This is level 1. So yeah, so they call that, I don't know if I can do this on the camera here. They call it a field interview position. So basically your hands are here or here or something like this, having my hands here. And I always have my hands kind of like thumbs touching and one hand over top. I don't have my fingers interlaced, okay, but one over the top. And I have it basically at my solar plexus height. My elbows are down by my side. And I'm still bladed. And again, don't clasp your fingers. And I don't know if I can show you. I'm basically standing like this. Right? And I'm just talking to somebody like that. And it doesn't even get picked up by the radar that I'm doing something. But if they go to swing at me or whatever, I have my hands right up, ready to do whatever they need to do to defend or to strike or whatever the case is. But it doesn't look like you're doing anything. Police call this a field interview stance. Okay, so you're bladed. And again, your hands are just kind of like this. You'll see them do this a lot. And if they're doing that, that's your field interview stance. Okay, level 2 is obviously if you need to make a scene, stay back away from me. That's what verbalize on this slide means. Okay, and this is your non-aggressive posture. You're not being aggressive. It's a fighting stance. Don't make any mistake about it. But it doesn't look like a fighting stance. Okay, it looks very defensive. So it communicates something different, but the function of it is the same. An attacker, they don't want to get hurt themselves. They don't want to get caught. Okay. And now we're talking largely about predatory attacks. Now we're talking about that asocial violence, right? Scream to draw attention, right? So again, antisocial aggression, there's going to be witnesses, right? It's about status and reputation among a group. So that's an indicator that you're in an antisocial aggression scenario if there's people around to witness it. Right? The asocial predator who wants to rape you, who wants to kill you, does not want to get caught, and so therefore he does not want witnesses. So you need to draw attention. But people, there's two things. If you scream help or fire or rape or something like that, probably no one's going to come, right? Just like if a car alarm goes off, nobody gives a shit. No one looks, right? And it actually inflames the predatory drive. Right? It's like when you turn your back from a dog or a bear and run. They just have that instinct to go even harder after you. It just inflames, it billows the flame of the predatory drive. So what would you yell? You yell something like, fight! Right? People want to see that. What's going to get them to come out and film it for fucking World Star? You know, scream things at them like, if you fucking come after me, I'm going to rip your fucking head off, you piece of shit. Like, who cares if you're scared? If you're scared shitless, that's you have to be aggressive, okay? Because when it comes to that monkey dance we talk about, that the antisocial aggression, if you just fronting like that, that's going to escalate it. That's going to be a catalyst, and it's going to cause the violence rather than backing away and being the low status person that slinks away. But in an asocial predatory scenario, they want an easy victim. They want the weak, the sick, the gazelle that is alone and isolated and can't fight back. For a predator, if you indicate that you're going to fight back, you're just really aggressive, then they might decide that you're not worth the trouble, so they're going to find an easier mark. So you have to recognize the situation you're in, because the solution for one is the catalyst for the other, if that makes sense. And I'm happy to clarify if you want. I read this book called Machete Season. Excellent book, and it was about the perpetrators of the Rwandan genocide, so the Hutus that went and killed the Tutsis. And there was a quote here that goes to this point. It says, many Tutsis showed a dreadful fear of being killed, even before we started to hit them. They'd stop their disturbing agitation. They would cower or stand stock still. So this terror helped us to strike them. It is more tempting to kill a trembling and bleeding goat than a spirited and frisky one. Put it that way. And I could not put it better myself. If you show weakness and fear and scared and you're begging and you're pleading, I've heard some people say, if someone got you tied up, just say, please, I have kids, I'm a mom, or whatever it is, to try and make yourself a human to them. All you're doing is making it more enjoyable for them. It is not going to work. You have to let them know that you mean business. Okay, the freeze. We talked about fight, flight, or freeze. There's different types of freezes. You know, I think of a freeze generally telling you that what you're doing so far has been keeping you alive, so just keep doing that. It's why a deer stands still in the headlights. Huh! If I don't move, you can't see me. If I don't move, you can't see me. If I don't move, and then all of a sudden you plow into it. So the scenario is too much for you to handle. You dissociate from what's happening in the present moment, and it's a mental escape from the now. There's the biological basis for the freeze. And sometimes this means, you have a hard time moving when under attack, as your hindbrain tells you that you're still alive and should therefore keep doing what you've been doing up to this point, even if you consciously realize it isn't working. Okay? That's why you freeze. Freezing absolutely sucks, and I don't think you can ever eliminate it entirely, but through training and constant trail drilling, you can minimize it, but you can never remove it entirely, unless you're a psychopath. Different types of freeze. There's a tactical freeze, which is a choice to freeze for the purpose of remaining unseen, letting the threat calm down, or to continue observing and gathering information. A physiological freeze, which is a response of not knowing what to do in overwhelming danger. Can also be the result of switching from a normal to an adrenalized state. This happens a lot, right? People just stand there. They don't do anything. They're like, do something. Well, they don't know. They're panicking. It's another word for they're frozen, right? They're in an adrenalized state. They're overwhelmed with what's going on around them. They just don't know what to do, and so they do nothing. A non-cognitive mental freeze occurs when the gap between your training and reality is too large. Decisions and or thought patterns that keep you from acting. The time it takes to switch gears is the freeze. I think I punch this guy in the throat and I'm going to drop. Actually, I won't even use that. I'll use the example of the classic equalizer in a physical defense scenario. Kick someone in the nuts. Well, I've done that a couple of times when it had absolutely zero effect. And the time it takes me to realize that had no effect and I have to switch to something else, that is the non-cognitive mental freeze. Oh shit, that didn't work. I got to go to something else now. A cognitive freeze is a thought process that can make you freeze. For example, getting caught in an observe orient loop, constantly taking in new information before you've oriented to the information you already have, such as being ambushed and subject to a barrage of blows, causing you to be unable to act. The guy's hitting me and you're trying to decide how to defend against the next thing, but you're already under attack. Cognitive freeze. Social cognitive freeze is what happens when you apply your internalized rules to an uncivilized situation. When you expect is not what you see. Okay, I've seen this so many times and it pisses me off more than any other thing. Oh, I'm not going to kick him in the groin. That would be what? That would not be fair. That would be dirty. I'm not going to fight dirty. Dude, there's only fighting dirty or dying. Those are your choices, okay, when it comes to self-defense. If you're in a competition in a sport, then fine. But when it comes to self-defense, they say street fights don't have rules, but you bring your own rules, and this is a rule that you bring to the fight. I'm going to do this. I'm not going to do this. I'm not going to run because I'm whatever your rules are, okay? This person is not the same as you. They don't feel the same as you. They want you dead or crippled. You have to let go of your hang-ups, okay? So I've seen this so many times. People actually say, I dated a girl. She's like, if someone was actually raping me, I don't think I could stick my thumb in their eye because I just couldn't hurt them like that. But they're raping you. Yeah, but I just couldn't do that. I was teaching grade 9 boys, I mentioned, and I was telling them about kicking in the groin. He's like, no, man, I wouldn't do that. That's what pussies do. I'm like, yeah, but what if you were having your ass handed to you and you were going to die? No, man, I just wouldn't do that. He trained in boxing. He trusted his boxing and wouldn't stoop to the level as low as kicking someone in the groin. Okay, well, that's going to be a rule that's going to kill you one day, and it's going to be your own fault. Pure social freeze is what happens when you're conditioned to be a victim. How many people do you know like that? An example would be domestic abuse victim, where the victim has chosen submission as a survival strategy. If I don't fight back, if I don't ask questions, if I just go along with it, the storm will blow over and I'll live to see another day. And that just becomes a survival mechanism, and then it becomes a behavioral pattern. So that conditions you like Pavlov's dog. When the bell rings, you cower because it's become your behavioral, or it's become your survival strategy, which has now become ingrained behavioral pattern. How do you break a freeze? This is important. Recognize that you're frozen. Recognize that you're in a freeze. Make yourself do something. Get up and move. Hit him in the face. Scream. I'd do something. Make yourself do something. And then repeat step 2. Keep making yourself do the thing until you can get out of the scenario. I touched on this earlier. In Canada, you have a duty to retreat. So if you're going to claim self-defense, you have to prove it to an officer or in a court of law, regardless of what charges they lay on you, that you were unable to make a safe escape for one reason or the other. Did you have to stay behind to protect your children that were sleeping? Was the exit blocked? Why did you have to stay and fight? Why did you have to hurt this person? Why did you have to do what you did? Why could you not escape? And this is Canadian law. Is it bullshit? I think so, but it is what it is. So just know that there's the physical fight and then there's the legal fight. And it's 2 fights, and it's not fair because you didn't bring it to yourself, but it is what you have to deal with. Okay, so now we're going to talk about physical attacks and my general approach to them. So you don't have a control. If we're talking about asymmetrical criminal violence, they're going to have the advantage. They're going to be bigger, stronger, faster, have multiple attackers. They're going to have a weapon or a combination of all the above. And I came to this conclusion through almost 20 years of training and standing on the shoulders of some giants in both military, law enforcement, my own experience on the door and in combat sports. I came up with a 3-step approach. I know it sounds a lot more simple than it really is. It's a 3-step approach to surviving self-defense. So this is, I call it a duct tape solution. It is, you're not going to be an expert ground fighter. You're not going to spend years doing Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu to be an amazing ground fighter. It's not like Mike Tyson level boxing, but it is a multi-tool for you to carry around with you to deal with most types of criminal attacks. Okay, which is crash, smash, and dash. Okay. In a modern day attack, we have no control over any of the variables except one, our own response, barring the freeze. You have to get yourself out of that. But even that's impeded because our limbic system thrusting us into a mode of fight or flight or freeze, causing adrenaline to course through our bodies, making any sort of complex thought or movement extremely difficult. If you were ambushed from behind, as an example, and turn to find 3 attackers, one of them with a knife coming at you, your own physiology would make it next to impossible to formulate a plan in that moment. You would not know what to do. So we need to basically hijack our own instinctive responses to a threat and treat ourselves like Pavlov's dog in a Pavlovian experiment and generate a conditioned response that's going to come out and bypass that thought process. And that's why we come up with this crash, smash, dash. It's a physical roadmap created to follow in such a situation. It's a skeletal frame that we can attach all of our physical tactics to. So it's a baseline. You can add to it with your Muay Thai or boxing or Kajikembo or fucking Jiu-Jitsu or whatever you want to do. But this is the skeletal structure, and you can fill it out and flesh it out with your own bones and meat and muscle, or so your muscle and skin and sinew and stuff like that to have a more complete, robust personal defense system. But this is the skeleton, okay? Crash, smash, dash. And you have to drill it to hardwire that response. Just like Pavlov's dog, you have to do it over and over again to get that bell ring to make you salivate. Okay, you have to train it to get it to work. And that's why I'm saying just a PowerPoint and a live stream is not going to do anything. You have to put this into practice physically. Excuse me. Maybe after this, I'll put on some video to show you this in action. But the crash in most modern street attacks, when the assailant actually intends to hurt or kill the victim, the assailant does not allow the victim to see the attack coming. This is called an ambush. Okay, you're already behind the curve here. The assailant has a significant advantage at this moment, and it is at this moment that it is crucial for the victim to remove further opportunity from the assailant to cause continued damage. Create your 1 second window of opportunity. Author and self-defense instructor Rory Miller suggests a golden standard for a response to this type of attack in his book Meditations on Violence, which would A, improve the victim's position, B, worsen the attacker's position, C, protect the victim from damage, or D, allow the victim to damage or control the assailant. You want to combine all these, and that would be like your golden, they call it the golden standard. In urban defensive tactics, okay, we have developed our Trinity block. The naming of Trinity block comes from Irish stick fighting, from another technique. Just it's one hand on your head here. Sorry, let me just take this off for a second. One hand on basically the crown of your head, the other hand on top of that, gripping on your head. Your elbows are coming in. You're tucking your chin here. Okay, you can see the picture here. He's doing that. Okay, and it's basically, think of it as a crash helmet more than anything. Okay, it's based on instinctive movements under a threat, right? Someone's throwing a strike at you. You want to put up your head. You want to cover your head, put your hands up. So we're hijacking that instinctive response of putting your hands up to protect your head and turning it into a simultaneous defense offensive tool. It is a crash helmet. Your elbows are up. You're going to be crashing into the attacker's center line, okay, with your elbows, which is going to put you in their intimate zone where you can then hit the next step, which is smash. We'll get to that. So you're able to start flipping the script. When you crash into them with your elbows, you are causing maybe half a second of a reactionary gap, and that half a second is that window of opportunity that you need to cause another injury, okay? You're probably not going to crash, especially if they're larger and stronger than you. You're not going to, this is not going to be the fight winner. This is going to get you in next to them where you can start to cause your damage with some smart targeting. Okay, here you go. You can kind of see it in different contexts. And I get explained, you place your palm on the crown of your head, the other palm immediately on top of the hand. Doesn't matter which side. No, whatever you like. Okay, with your rear heel elevated, explode. So think of yourself in a sprinter's block. You want to explode forward toward the attacker, toward their center line, using your elbows and forearms as your battering ram, okay, as your contact points, okay? You're trying to use this part up here to drive into that person wherever you hit them, okay? And we practice drilling at length to get familiar with 360 degrees around a person's body. So no matter where you hit them, you know where to go from there. Again, we're building a roadmap, and this is our entry point. Smash. Okay, so using the Trinity block to crash into the assailant and close the gap, we then utilize urban defensive tactics uniquely applied, combative controls. So you're holding on to them, controlling your movement, staying attached to them, while being combative, okay, while causing damage. So this is the smash component. Smart targeting, back of the neck, throat, knees. What are the things that you can cause the most amount of damage with the least amount of effort, okay? So you're anchoring yourself to them and using our close quarters combat strikes, which are palm, hammer fist, elbows, and knees. These are the main ones. Why do we do palm? Why do we do hammer fist? Why do we do elbow? Why do we do knees? Because they're gross motor oriented. Remember, we could be at 150, 145 a higher beats per minute. Trying to do something fancy is not going to win the day for us. We need large muscle groups moving so we can do it under stress and trust it to be effective for us. And we need to use it to target the things that are going to cause the most damage. Okay, so using gross motor movements to weak points on their body. Of course, they're going to move. We don't want them to move, so we use that Trinity block or that crash helmet. Just think of it as a crash helmet. To get into them, we anchor ourselves to them by grabbing on with what we call combative controls, okay? And then we smash. Then we start to break things, okay, essentially. And then dash, okay? Obviously, at your earliest convenience, your earliest opportunity, you want to exercise your duty to retreat, okay? If you've damaged them enough where you can make a legitimate, safe exit, you want to do that. When you get away from them to a safe place, okay, you want to check yourself for injuries. Am I bleeding? Was I stabbed? Is my finger like all fucking broken and bent? You want to survey yourself for injuries. And I know you may or may not like police, but you want to call 911. And you want to do it before they do. Because if someone that you just left in a pool of blood on the floor, calls police first, or God forbid there's security cameras that picked you up doing that and you don't call it, that's going to lead to a lot of hot water for you. So regardless of your personal feelings, call and report it. Call and report it. Okay. That's my advice to you, whether you take it or not. Okay. Escape to a safe place. Check yourself for injuries. Call 911. Crash, smash, and dash. Okay. Here's a recommended reading. The Gift of Fear by Gavin de Becker. Meditations on Violence by Rory Miller. Left of Bang by Patrick Van Horn and Jason Riley. When Violence is the Answer from Tim Larkin. The Murderer Next Door from David M. Buss, who is an evolutionary psychologist. Okay. Whoop. There we go. Got some comments here. Awesome. Okay. Anyways, just want to bring that back up here, that recommended reading list, guys. That's what the covers of the books look like. You can find them anywhere on Amazon. If you read these 5 books on their respective topics, you're going to understand more about criminal violence than 90% of the population, okay? I would like to maybe bring up a video on Crash, Smash, Dash. I'll play one video. It's, I must admit, I'm a bit embarrassed by it. It was when I first started YouTube. I didn't really know what I was doing. The video was kind of budget, shitty video, but the concepts are there. So I'm going to play that video for you. And you can mock it all you want, because it is certainly, it's cringe. I'm not going to lie. It's a cringe video as far as the videos go, but the concepts are there. So I'll get to that here. Let me just pause you. Oh, I don't even want to show it to you. It's so embarrassing, but I'm going to anyway. Okay. Here we go. Also share audio. Okay, here we go, guys. Here's a video. It is a few minutes long, and then I'll finish off the podcast. And this will just kind of be a good review of the concepts we just shared. And if you have any questions again or comments, please do put those in the comments on whatever platform you are watching. All right. It is a 9-minute video. Okay, so we're in it for the long haul. Okay, so let's watch this together.
Today, I'm going to teach you the most important principles you need to know to defend yourself from a violent attack. Hi, I'm TJ Kennedy, Training Director at Kennedy Tactical Concepts, aka the Combative Canuck. If you were to ask 1,000 different people what the best martial art for self-defense is, you get 1,000 different answers. And while some arts are better than others for that purpose, the truth is none of them are going to help you if you don't follow these basic principles of self-defense. We're going to explore these principles, but first let's check out this quote from self-defense author Rory Miller from his book Facing Violence. It is better to avoid than to run. Better to run than to de-escalate. Better to de-escalate than to fight. Better to fight than to die. First, let's talk about avoidance. There are 2 things we need to consider in order to identify a potential threat before it becomes an actual threat. And those 2 things are situational awareness and behavioral analysis. PsychologyDictionary.org tells us that situational awareness is the conscious knowledge we have of the immediate environment and all of the events happening in it. A useful tool in measuring our level of situational awareness is called Cooper's Color Codes, and this system was created by this guy, John Dean, aka Jeff Cooper, who was a U.S. Marine. The first stage of awareness, or lack thereof, in Cooper's Color Codes is condition white, where you are completely oblivious and unaware. You are completely switched off. Basically, this condition should only be experienced when you're in an environment that is trusted to be safe, such as when you're at home behind your locked doors, where there's a low possibility of a threat. When you are in condition white and not paying attention to your immediate environment, you are ripe for the picking. Escalating your level of awareness to condition yellow means you're aware of your environment and the people in it. You're constantly creating baselines and spotting anomalies, being prepared to act if a threat is detected. And in just a little bit, we're going to talk about what a baseline is and what an anomaly is, so hang tight. After condition yellow, you meet condition orange, where you are now alert. You've identified an anomaly in the situational baseline, and this warrants more observation and investigation to see if there is an actual threat present. In condition red, you are concerned because you've identified an actual threat. There is a clear and present danger, and every effort must be made to either avoid an escape or contain the situation before it escalates into physical conflict. When you've reached condition black, that means all else has failed and you are under attack. You're actively being attacked, your verbal measures have failed, and physical measures must be made to stop the further loss of life or property. You are in crisis. So, how do you know what constitutes an actual threat? For this, we look at behavioral analysis. When trying to determine if someone may be a threat to you, you have to measure their behavior against the normal behavior in the context that they're in. That normal behavior is called a baseline. Anything then that doesn't fit in with that normal behavior is called an anomaly. If you spot an anomaly, that's when you need to take notice. If, despite all of your efforts, you're unable to circumvent a threat or you're unable to make a safe escape, you're going to have to keep in mind that violence happens up close and personal, so you're going to have to do everything you can to protect the immediate space around you. So let's take a little bit of a closer look at this by looking at something called proxemics. Proxemics is the study of human use of space and the effects that population density has on behavior, communication, and social interaction. In Western culture, you generally behave according to these guidelines. The immediate space around you, to approximately 1.5 feet, is your intimate personal space. This is reserved for loved ones, family, children, that sort of thing. If you move beyond that to a zone of about 4 feet from your person, this is your personal space. This would be reserved for your close friends. Once you move beyond that to a radius of about 9 feet, this is the social zone. So anybody that doesn't have a personal relationship with you that you're interacting with would stay approximately this distance from you. And once you move beyond 9 feet, anything beyond that is more public domain. So everybody out there walking out and about. In order for someone to be successful at a violent attack, they have to get into your personal or intimate space. We prevent this by facing the threat at the earliest possible opportunity and by adopting a stance in which we can readily defend ourselves if need be. This stance is called the non-aggressive posture. Our body is slightly bladed away from the attacker with our hands outstretched as we verbalize commands such as back off or leave me alone. These commands must be assertive, loud, and clear. If the attacker breaches your personal space with the intent to harm you, you will now have to fight. Our goal with fighting is to create enough of a gap in space and time to make a safe escape. How much of a gap do you need? Let's hear what defensive tactics instructor and former intelligence officer Adam Nasrallah has to say about the matter.
You can't really escape. 10 feet is not enough time to meaningfully escape, because in order to escape a situation where you're disengaged and hostile intent is evident or has already been executed, you can first of all never turn your back on the attacker. 10 feet moves very fast. Okay, half a second. You need 20 feet of eyes on. You're good. I don't want any trouble. You're good. You need 20 feet before you can reliably turn your back and run in the other direction.
So, how do we create this gap in space and time enough for us to escape? We have to create a serious enough injury to our attacker that the time it takes them to recover from that injury is longer than the time it takes for us to get our asses out of it. We do this by following our process of crash, smash, and dash. In most modern street attacks, domestic attacks, if an attacker really has an intent to harm you, they're not going to let you see it coming. This is going to be what's called an ambush. If you're in a scenario where the attacker does get the jump on you with an ambush, then it's absolutely critical that at your earliest possible opportunity, you remove the attacker's chance to cause more damage. Author and self-defense instructor Rory Miller suggests a golden standard for a response to this type of attack in his book, Meditations on Violence. This golden standard would A, improve the victim's position, B, worsen the attacker's position, C, protect the victim from damage, and also D, allow the victim to damage or control the attacker. In our urban defensive tactics, we use the Trinity block as a crash helmet of sorts that meets all of the specifications of Rory Miller's golden standard. For detailed instruction on how to use the Trinity block, check out the playlist here, but otherwise, here's what it would look like. Trinity block as a crash helmet will allow you to weather the incoming attacks that your attacker is sending your way as you move into your attacker, beginning to flip the script in the situation. Once you've crashed into the attacker, you're going to need to anchor yourself to them so you can start causing injury. We do this with a combative control. And again, for detailed instruction on how to apply combative controls, check out this playlist here. But otherwise, this is what it's going to look like. Now that you're anchored to the attacker, it's time to smash. The 4 most effective strikes to use to smash are palm strikes, hammer fists, elbows, and knees. And you should target the most vulnerable areas of the attacker's body, targets such as the neck, head, groin, and so on. Here's what that would look like. As soon as you've done enough damage to your attacker to make your safe escape, it's time to dash. But dashing is not as simple as running away. It's a 3-step process where you run to a safe place, check yourself for injuries, and call 911, or whatever your emergency services number happens to be in your particular country. Well, there you have it. That's an effective principle-based approach to self-defense against a criminal-style attack.
Okay, so there you go. So that was painful to watch for me, but it kind of was a good summary of what we've been talking about. Anyways, so that PowerPoint presentation that we went through, which had all those slides with all the details and everything like that, if you would like a PDF version of that, please do reach out to me and I can send it to you via email. I can also send you the recommended reading list of books, or you can just watch the replay of this to grab those. I do highly recommend those books. Those are very good. Also, we're here every Thursday night. We have an excellent show for you next week. We have Mr. Greg Wycliffe that's going to be here, so that's pretty cool. We have Mocha Bzergan that's going to be coming on in June. We have some excellent shows coming up in July. I'm really excited for one with a gender transitioner, who he went through bottom surgery and he regrets going through that. And he just is here going to be sharing his story about how the establishment basically pushed him into that as a gay man, to then become a gay man without genitalia. And I just have a lot of compassion for him. And he just feels like, anyways, it's just going to be really good to talk about the gender ideology and how the system is weaponized against us in that regard. I have Tariq Naga is going to be coming on to talk about Western culture and immigration. He, of course, was from Dubai, and he came over here to Alberta, fell in love with Alberta, and is now a rodeo competitor, championship rodeo competitor. So that is really cool. So we're going to be talking with him. And we just have a lot of excellent guests coming up on Wagons West every Thursday night here at 6 p.m. Mountain Time, 8 p.m. Eastern Time. I thank you guys for joining me once again. Please do go check out tjkennedyphoto.substack.com. Sign up for free. I would appreciate if you do want to be a paid subscriber. You'll get a little bit more of the perks and some more articles there, highlighting not just writing, but my photography as well. So I do appreciate you guys. I appreciate you guys for taking the time to listen today. Before I sign off, I am going to go on over to Rumble to see if there were Rumble rants, view cache rants. Okay, let's see. Okay. I see no rants here. Let me just go over just to make sure. Nope, no rants today. Anyways, okay, I appreciate you guys for coming and watching. Once again, Wagons West every Thursday night here, 6 p.m. Mountain Time, 8 p.m. Eastern Time. Thanks for joining me. If you have any questions about any of the stuff we talked about today, you can fire me off an email at tjken@pm.me or DM me on whatever platform you happen to be watching, or you can just leave a comment under the video where you are now. Any extra comments here that I missed? No, just some comments like good points on the situational awareness. A lot of people commenting on the situational awareness. So definitely good. Keep your head about you. If you found some value in this, please do share it with somebody you think could get some value out of it outside of yourself. And until then, I will see you next Thursday. Thanks, guys.